Y'all stop talking about Zena, she's back. So we've covered 2 of the 3 approaches to value. 2 of the 3. What was the first one? The what? I know it was a whole like 3 hours ago. So what was the first one we covered? The sales comparison approach. And we use that to value what kind of property? Residential and vacant land. All right, we just now covered the cost approach. What kinds of properties do we use the cost approach on? Special use properties, public properties, insurance purposes. So what kind of property have we not yet talked about? Commercial. Income producing is a better way to refer to it. Because it's not, here's the thing, it doesn't have to be commercial to be income producing. Can you have residential property that's income producing? Yes. Absolutely. And here's what you need to know about that. When we have an income producing property, its value is always going to be based on its what? Its income. It's only valuable to the extent that it produces what? Income for the owner. So the more income it produces, the more what? Value it has. You need to know that. That's going to be on the test. They're going to ask you the simplest question possibly imaginable about the income capitalization approach, and you will get it wrong because you get so caught up in the details that you don't pay attention to the big picture item here. The income capitalization approach is just designed to take the property's income and convert it into a what for the property? A value for the property. That's all it does. The income capitalization approach takes the property's income and says, well, if it's producing this much income, it must be worth this much money. So how do we increase the value of the property? We raise the rent. We increase the income that the property is producing. If the income goes down, what also goes down? The value of the property. So before I even go forward with that, let me talk about how that can have a real world impact. Back in chapters 14 and 15 last week, we talked about when you financed income producing property or investment property, commercial real estate, we said it was very unusual to have a fully amortized loan. Fully amortized means what? You pay it all the way down to what? Zero. We said most of the time in commercial real estate you have partially amortized loans. You would make a payment that it might take you 30 years to pay it off, but you'd only been loaned the money for what? How many years? 7 years. So what are you going to have at the end of that 7 years? A balloon payment. Now, do most people have the balloon payment to make? No. So what do they end up doing? They finance it again. Think about that, though. I want you to think about what could happen with a commercial property, just to show you how important this income capitalization approach is. Let's say that I go out and I buy a shopping center. And I buy it for $10 million. Right? And I'm putting 20% down. So how much of a down payment am I putting in? $2 million. And I'm borrowing what? $8 million. So I borrow that on a 7-year note. It's amortized for 30 years, which means it would take me how long to pay it down to zero? 30, but I've only been given how long? 7, so I'm going to have a balloon payment at the end. So we get to the end of 7 years, and I've paid that thing down, and I owe $7,250,000 as a balloon payment. That's about where we'd probably be on that thing after 7 years. So we owe $7.25 million as a balloon payment. Is everybody with me? The lender says, okay, well, what if we refinance it? We need to figure out what the property's worth. But now all of a sudden the property's producing 30% less income than it was 7 years ago when we bought it. Is the value of it going to go down?
Yeah.
By how much? 30%. Because literally the value of an income-producing property is tied directly to its income. So if the value of the property goes down by 30%, it was worth $10 million. How much is it worth now? $7 million. How much is my balloon payment? 7.25. Can I even refinance that thing to pay off the balloon payment?
No.
No, because the property's not even worth what? The amount I owe of the balloon payment, because the income's decreased that substantially. So is it a big deal when the income changes on an investment property? Absolutely it is. Everybody following me on that? By the way, what does that result in when something like that happens? Foreclosure. No way around it. No way around it, because you can't pay the balloon payment. Doesn't matter if you're current on the monthly payments, because the note's now due. Everybody all right with that? Okay? So, when we talk about the income capitalization approach, it is just going to be a simple, straightforward math equation that converts the property's estimated future income, notice it says future income, into a current value. Because we really don't care what income is produced in the past, because if we're trying to buy the property, income that's produced in the past doesn't matter so much to us. What kind of income do we care about? Income it's going to produce for us in the future. We use this formula right here. This is the income capitalization formula. On top, we use something called net operating income. Do you remember that from that big long formula we did from the before tax cash flow formula? Net operating income is really just before tax cash flow, but what do you not subtract out? What do you subtract out to get down to before tax cash flow? Debt service. So it's net operating income, which means basically the income the property produces before you subtract out any mortgage payment on it. Everybody with me on that? Okay. So we use net operating income on the top, and on the bottom we use something called a capitalization rate. Capitalization rate. The good news for you is in almost every test question, in fact, not in almost, in every test question, they will give you the capitalization rate. So if they're asking for the value of the property and they give you the capitalization rate, what do you think the only thing you're going to have to figure out is? The NOI. That's going to be the math. You're going to need to be able to figure out the NOI, because once you do that. So here's an example. It says an investment property has the following characteristics. 50 units that rent for $800 each monthly. Annual vacancy rates that equal 8% of the gross potential income. 10% property management fee, annual property taxes of $30,000, and other operating expenses of $58,000. What is all that information going to help us do? What are we going to do with that? Put it in that big what? That big long before tax cash flow formula and get to our net operating income. Because what they've said is that similar investment properties have generated an annual capitalization rate of 9.3%. What's the estimate of value of the property? Well, if you look at the formula, it says the value is going to be the NOI divided by the what? By the capitalization rate. They gave us the cap rate, which is just 9.3%. So we don't need to do any math with that. But they did not give us the NOI. So you have to be able to work with, remember I told you how important that formula was going to be. We will be coming back to it, right? You have to be able to calculate the NOI for the property. They've given you the cap rate, but we need the NOI to get to the value. So, there's our formula again. Blast from the past that it is. If you have not already memorized this formula, now would be a good time, because you're going to have to know it. Remember, don't go all the way to the end, because if you go all the way to the end, what are you going to end up with? Not NOI, but what? Before tax cash flow. So make sure you stop before you get there. So here's how we would work that out. I know it's small here, but you've got it in front of you as well. Our gross potential income, well, that's 50 units times $800 a month, which is $40,000 monthly. But everything in this formula should be what? Annual. Everything in the before tax cash flow is annual, so we have to multiply that times 12. So that's $480,000 a year in gross potential income. Now, gross effective income is gross potential minus the what? Vacancy. And here's what they told us about vacancy. The vacancy is 8% of the gross potential. So our vacancy in this case is $38,400. Everybody see where I am there? Okay. So we subtract out that $38,400, and we end up with a gross effective income of $441,600. $441,600. And then we need to subtract our operating expenses, because once we subtract our operating expenses, we will be left with NOI. Is everybody good with that? Okay. So let's talk about the operating expenses. This 10% management fee. 10% of $441,600 is $44,160. We also had property taxes of $30,000, and it said other operating expenses of $58,000. So that's total operating expenses of $132,160. Does everybody see that? Which leaves us with an NOI of $309,440. Once we know the NOI, did they give us the cap rate?
Yes. Yes.
So we have the NOI, we have the cap rate. Can we calculate the value of that property? Absolutely, we can. We can just divide them, plug it in. So that's $309,440 divided by 9.3%. The value of that property is $3,327,311 and some change. NOI, the income capitalization approach, is by far the easiest one to teach, because as long as you've actually learned the formula for calculating NOI, all you need to do is now divide it by a capitalization rate. And they're going to give you the capitalization rate every single time. You won't have to hunt for it. All right, so let's go back to the worksheet. Look at number 17. Why don't you go ahead and do number 17? 17 is not what we just did. 17 just wants to know what the properties before tax cash flow is. So this part of it should completely be a review for you at this point, because we've done that before. All right, let's take a look at it. They just want to know the before tax cash flow. So I'm going to go over here and just make myself a little chart. We start with what? Gross potential income minus what? Vacancy equals gross effective income minus what? Operating expenses. And that equals what? NOI. And of course, if we went minus debt, then that would equal before tax cash flow. And they want to know all the way down to the bottom. Is everybody okay on that? Okay. So here's what they start to tell me information. 80 units of rent for $700 a month. Okay. So that's just making notes for myself. 80 times how much? 700 times 12. Okay. In the past year, an average of 5 units per month were vacant. So on vacancy, I'm going to put 5 times 700 times 12, right? 5 units rent for 7. And they also said we didn't collect another $3,500 in rent, so I'm just going to put $3,500 on that line. And that's not $3,500 times 12, because it says an additional $3,500 in rent was not collected from the tenants for the past what? Year. So that's just $3,500 and leave it alone. Additional expenses included the following: a management fee of 10% of the effective gross income. So down here on operating expenses line, I'm going to put 10%. All right. I'm also got property taxes of $45,000. What line do property taxes go on? Operating expenses, right? Utilities, $60,000 is an operating expense. How about the maintenance and repairs of $35,000? Operating expense. And then debt service of $180, that goes all the way down here at debt. And finally, other operating expenses of $70,000. All right, we're ready to do our math here. So gross potential income, 80 times 700 times 12, $672,000 for gross potential. And we want to subtract our vacancy here. So minus 5 times 700 times 12. $42,000 plus $3,500, so total vacancy of $45,500. Is everybody okay on that number?
Yes.
All right. And that leaves us with a gross effective income of $626,500. And $500. Good. Now I want to start subtracting out all my operating expenses. So I got $62,650 for a management fee plus the $45,000 and $60,000, $35,000, $70,000. $272,650 sound about right for operating expenses?
Yes. Yes.
$272,650. And if we subtract that out, $353,850 for an NOI minus the $180,000 for the debt service. Everybody okay there? And that leaves us with a before tax cash flow of $173,850. Everybody all right with that number?
Yes.
For before tax cash flow. And that's what they were asking for on this question. So $173,850. Well, then look at question number 18. On question 18, it just says in the question above, it should say question 17 above. I have to clearly fix that. In the question above, what would be the value of the property if the prevailing capitalization rates in the area is 9.6%? So now it wants to know the value of the property. Well, remember our formula for value on an income property. What goes on top of the formula? NOI. And down here on the bottom, we have the value and we have the cap rate. Well, we know the cap rate is how much? 9.6%, and we just calculated the NOI up there. Actually, we need to go back and look at the NOI. Is how much? 353 what? 850. 353 850 is our NOI. So the value of that property is $3,685,937 and about 50 cents. Yes, ma'am.
To go back to 17 for a second, I just want to see where you put that additional 3,500.
Oh, you want to see the solution to it?
I missed that part, just the 3,500. After you did 5 times 700 times 12, then it's an additional 3,500 and rent was not collected.
So that's vacancy and rent collection losses, right? So it all goes on the vacancy line.
Okay.
Because it's rent you did not collect.
Right, I get that. So I guess I was looking at the 5 units per month were vacant.
Yes.
And then an additional 3,500.
Right, which is what I did. So look at my total vacancy over there. It's $45,500. That's this and that combined. Because if you do 5 units times $700 a month times 12 months, that's actually $42,000.
Okay.
And then the additional $3,500 makes it $45,500.
Gotcha.
Is that what you were asking? Okay. Yes, ma'am.
I got a little backward on the operating expenses, the 10%, was that taken out of the $626,500?
Absolutely. Your management fee is always a percentage of your gross effective income.
So whatever that answer was, it added to the 45,000, 60,000, 35, 70.
That's right.
Okay.
Right. That's where this total operating expenses came from. That's just all these numbers totaled out plus the 10% of 6. So 62,650 plus 45,000 plus 60,000, 35,000, 70,000 totals up to 272,650.
Okay, great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So what I did is that now, I had everything the debt service, and it was 180,000, but I added 35 because it was rent. Does it have anything to do with from the past year? That's why it would be considered operating expenses?
What now? I'm not sure what you're asking.
Okay, so it says here, an additional 100 and it was not collected. Is it debt service
No, rent's not debt service.
or mortgage?
No, rent's not debt service. Rent is the money coming in,
Right.
not money going out.
Oh, yes, yes.
Yeah, there you go. You got it now?
Yes.
Okay. You gotta deal with it at the top with the money coming in. I don't think mine looks neat at all, but. Well, first of all, don't try to do a question like this in the and here's the thing. I watch people do it all the time. Just because they gave you this much space on the paper does not mean you use that much space. You come up here and you get blank paper. Take a whole sheet, spread it out, because spreading it out visually makes all the difference in the world, being able to see what you're working with. Don't worry about how much paper you use. We got plenty. You see it. Use it, all right? We do have a paper mill. Are you saying it stinks around here? Is that what you're saying? We'll see if we can get Lynn to work on that for you. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, we feel all right about this? All right. So then we just use that same number, or the NOI that we came up with in the previous one to answer number 18. And that gives us a value of the property of $3.6 million. All right, let's do number 19. You guys work on number 19. Okay.
It's kind of off topic, but who staples all these papers together?
The machine does.
Alright, it's just been like, I've been wanting to ask that question since like the first day.
His name is Mr. Xerox. Same one who punches all the holes in them, too.
We pay for it in cash, that's how, part of his operating expense.
That's right, that's an operating
Right, you
expense.
put it all together, you know.
Capitalization rate.
It's the first time we've used the capitalization rate. Are you being facetious or you just?
No.
Yeah. You know why you lost? Did you punch some things in the calculator before you written them down?
No, I'm writing them down. But then I missed something. I mean, I know it's this, time, this 10% of property management fee is of what? Of the gross potential?
What is it, 10% property management fee?
So that-
Percentage of. Never.
Never.
Percentage of gross. Hey.
And so I can get this and this, and they play gross productivity. I can, something that I use this. And I'm like, and I don't see any of these services, so.
I could be wrong.
Oh, because I'm just going right here to this, and I'm like.
Right.
Thank you.
Travis? So 185, is that including the 10% fees, or is it adding it to the percentage?
It's already in there.
Thank you.
Already baked in. Including's a lovely word, isn't it? Annual operating expenses that total something including a 10% management fee. Including means it's already what? It means it's already included. All right, let's take a look at it. So here's the first thing I do, and I think it will help some of you. I don't try to read this for detail the first time through. There's too much stuff, number one. Number two, I have no idea what they're gonna ask me for. Does that make sense for everybody? So I am just glancing through and I'm looking for the question. What do they want to know? And in this case, what do they want to know? They want to know the estimate of value using the income approach. Does that make sense for everybody? So the next thing I did was what? Write down the formula for coming up with value using the net operating income. And once I write down the formula, that shows me that I need to know two things. I need to know the property's NOI and I need to know the property's what? Capitalization rate. Did they give me a capitalization rate?
Yes.
They did. So I don't need to do any math whatsoever for the cap rate. What's the only math I have to do here? I need to know the NOI for the property. Does that make sense for everybody? Okay? I need to know the property's NOI. So I'm going to start looking and taking notes for myself. It says Johnson Appraiser has been tasked with finding the value of an apartment complex. It's a total of 36 units. 24 of these units have 3 bedrooms and rent for $1,100 each monthly. So I'm going to write 24 times 1,100 times what? 12. Okay? And I can mark that out if I want to. You know, be on a highlighter. Get rid of that. Mark that out and follow along. The remaining 12 are 2-bed units and rent for $900 a month. So it's 12 times what?
900.
12 times 900 times 12. All right, so dealt with that. Over the past year, the property's experienced 6% losses in vacancy and collections. So for vacancy, I'm just going to write what? 6%. The property has annual operating expenses that total $185,000, including a 10% property management fee. Some of you wanted to calculate that thing so bad. Including a 10% management fee. So all I need to do for operating expenses is what? Right, 185. It's 185. Because it's already there. Other similar apartment complexes are found to have a 9% capitalization rate. So I've got everything I need to know. So if I do my gross potential income, all right, 24 times 11 times 12.
316,800.
There we go. 316,800.
What?
For just those units. Calm down over there. We're on that. At least I know she's paying attention, right? 12 times 900 times 12. That's another 129. 600. And if I combine those, let me get a number before Xenia has a heart attack. 446, 400. Better?
Yes.
Can you breathe? What'd you do?
I did 1,100 times 24 equals 26,400, and 900 times 12 equals 2,800.
Add those together and multiply by 12. Same thing. Same thing. So you got total monthly and then just multiply times 12 one time. That works just fine. Okay? So we got 446, 400 for gross potential. We want to deal with 6% vacancy. So that's what, 26,784?
Yes. Plus 419, 616.
419, 616.
Yes.
I tell you, it really helps, I think, to kind of like draw out, give yourself lines, something to keep yourself organized with this, because it really is about having a visual sort of keeping them on the right lines, I think, with this formula. All right, minus operating expenses, so minus $185,000. Everybody okay with that?
Yes. 434.
So that gives us an NOI of 234, 616, right? And that's what we want. We want the NOI. So we're done on this chart. Everybody agree with that?
Yes.
Good to go. 234, 616, and we're going to bring that over to our other formula. 234, 616 divided by 9%, and the value of that property is $2,606,844 and 44 cents. And if you're off a few dollars, you're fine. I mean, you're anywhere near $2,606,800, you're good. Everybody okay?
Yes.
Feel all right about those? All right. So you've got one more of those to do as homework, I believe. Yep. Number 20. And the last thing we need to talk about in chapter 17, if you go back to your slides, the last thing we need to talk about in this chapter is something called a gross rent multiplier. This is not different than the income capitalization approach. It's just a takeoff of the income capitalization approach. We're still using the income to predict the property's value, except in this case, we don't have all the data we need to get to NOI. It takes a lot of information about the property to get to an NOI, doesn't it? I mean, you got to know vacancy, you got to know operating expenses. What if you're buying a house? If you're buying a house and you intend to rent it out, are you likely to know what the operating expenses are of that property? Or the maintenance expenses or the property management expenses? You're probably likely to know only one number. What do you know about that property? The one number. What you can do what with it? What you can rent it for. That's all you're going to know. If you're buying an investment property, a house, to rent out, the one number you know going into that thing is what you can rent it for, because you've probably already done the research to see what similar things are renting for in the area. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yes.
So we need a very shortcut way to figure out how much we're willing to pay for it based on how much we can rent it for. Is everybody good with that? That's a gross rent multiplier. It's just a very shortcut way. And you should hope you get 20 of these questions on the test, because it's so super easy. There's no calculating involve, like you gotta do with an NOI, you gotta do all those calculations. Gross rent multiplier just uses monthly rent. That's it. The income piece that you use is the monthly rent. So this is what the formula looks like. It says that the gross rent multiplier times the monthly rent will give you the what? The value of the property, what you're willing to pay for it. Here's another way to think of gross rent multipliers. A gross rent multiplier is just a simple shortcut way of saying how many months it's going to take you to get your money back. If I pay this much for the property and I rent it for this month, can I figure out how many months it's going to take me to get my money back? That's the gross rent multiplier. So let me ask you a question. What's going to be better, a higher gross rent multiplier or a lower gross rent multiplier? Lower, because it's the number of months that it takes you to do what? Get your money back. And you would like to get your money back in a shorter amount of time. Is everybody okay with that? So, all you got to do is plug in the monthly rental here, and either the sales price of the property would give you the gross rent multiplier, or if they give you the gross rent multiplier. Here's the way this works. When investors are looking at buying rental property, this is how they quickly determine how much they're willing to pay for the property. Because if they know that property will rent for $1,500 a month, and they know they don't want to take longer than 100 months to get their money back, can they quickly figure out how much they're willing to pay for that property? Yeah. What's it going to be? It's going to be, the gross rent multiplier is what? They want to get their money back in 100 months. The gross rent multiplier is 100, and the monthly rent is how much? $1,500. So 100 times $1,500, how much are they willing to pay for the property? $150,000. Simple as that. So they're willing to offer 100. Here's the thing, if they had to pay more than $150, guess what happens to their gross rent multiplier? It goes up, because it takes longer now, unless they do what with the rent? Because they raise the rent to lower the gross rent multiplier back down? Everybody follow me on that? So here's just a quick example of that. It says a rental home generates monthly income of $1,450. If the owner investor purchased the home for $172,000, what is the gross rent multiplier? And it says gross rent multiplier is just the value divided by the monthly rent. There's our formula up there. So the gross rent multiplier is equal to the value divided by the monthly rent. How much did you buy the house for? $172, that's your value. And the monthly income is what? $1,450, so our gross rent multiplier is 118.62, which means it's going to take them almost 10 years to get their money back, because 10 years would be how many months? 120 months? 12 months a year times 10 years would be 120 months. So it's going to take them almost 10 years to get their money back. Which would be better? A gross rent multiplier of 118 or a gross rent multiplier of 100? Which one's better? 100 or 118? Which one's better? 100, because you want to get it back what? Quicker, sooner. Sooner is better. Everybody all right with that?
Do they use this same formula for commercial?
What kind of property? I told you exactly what kind of property. What it's going to be. What kind of income though? Specific type of income producing property. What? Residential income producing property. That's the only thing we're going to use this on is residential income producing property. And it's simply because we don't have all the data for residential property that would be this is not nearly as accurate as doing the full income capitalization approach. But the full income capitalization approach only works if you can get to what number? What's the magic number that you need? You need an NOI. If you're buying a house, folks, there's not going to be any books to look at because it's probably not currently what? It's not leased. It's not leased. So there's not going to be any records of how much the operating expenses are and how much the rent that was not collected and all those things that you need to get the NOI. So you really only know one thing. You flying blind. You know one thing. How much you can probably do what with it? Rent it for monthly. That's the only number you know. So it's the only thing you have to base your offer on. See, you've got to get out of your mind that somehow there's a magic amount that should be negotiated. There's plenty of investors that offer above full price. And there's plenty of investors that offer way below full price. Because you know what they don't look at? They don't look at the price at all. What dictates how much an investor is willing to pay for the property? That math equation does. If they're looking at buying a house, they know exactly how much they're willing to pay for the house because they're going to plug it into a math equation. They don't care what it's listed at. They don't care if they're insulting with their offer. They're going to pay what the equation says they should pay. Does that make sense for everybody? That's the way it works for investors. Okay? Make sure you learn that formula. The math's not going to get easier than this math. I can promise you that. This math is the easiest math on the whole test probably. But you've got to know the formula. Okay? So, go back to your little worksheet. What's he doing over there? Oh.
That's
Are you laughing, crying at the same time? Cry laughing? Look at number 21. It says Travis purchases a duplex in which each unit rents for $980 per month. Assuming he wishes to stay within a gross rent multiplier of 100, what should he pay for the property? So let's write down the formula for a gross rent multiplier. What goes on the top? The value of the property. And what goes on the bottom? The GRM and monthly rent. Do we know a GRM? What is it? 100. Do we know monthly rent? How much is it? How much is it? How much is it? Oh. 980 times what? Times 2. 980 times 2. $1,960 monthly. Does everybody see where that number comes from? 2 units, they each rent for $980. Now can we calculate the value of the property? What is it? $196,000. It said triplex, how many? 3. Sextumplex. 6.
Would be 7.
Septumplex would be 7, yes. You gotta know all those. I'm kidding. You don't have to know past quadruplex. That's 4. Duplex 2, triplex 3, quadruplex 4. Yeah, no octuplexes. No duodecimplexes, maybe 12 units. I took Latin in high school. I can go all day on that mess. You know, it's the only thing useful I learned in Latin. So. Everybody good? Okay. So look at number 22 then. You go ahead and do number 22. It's the last question in the packet.
Should we just do the whole number, not the decimal point?
No, use the decimal. What?
Monthly rental rate, 100? Just because of the word rate.
And you're not calculating a rate either, though. What do they want to know? They just want to know the gross rent multiplier. What goes on top of our formula here? $148,000. What goes down here on the bottom? Monthly rent of $1,250. What are we going to do? We're going to divide 148 divided by 1250. 118 point what? 118.4. There's your gross rent multiplier. Doesn't matter what side you got it on. Same thing. Same thing. 118.4. Everybody good on that as far as the gross rent multiplier? Like I told you, you really hope you get like 17 of those on the test, right? You probably won't, but you'll get one, so make sure you don't miss that one.
Yeah.
That is all for chapter 17. Short, lightweight, right? Super important chapter. Super important chapter. All right, let's do this. Let's, well, I'll give you all the choice. I'm going to cover chapter 18 before you leave today. Do you want a quick break and then chapter 18, or do you want to get out of here a few minutes earlier? A few minutes earlier, is that fine? Everybody good? Nobody's vibrating out of their chair? Okay, all right, stop and restart. Go ahead and take out your slides for chapter 18. I passed out the slides for chapter